Hi, my name is Keiki, and I'm a gay cisgendered woman. I live in London with my fiance, and we are approved foster carers. I didn't originally set out to become a foster carer. I wanted to adopt. It was always something I talked about doing, one day. I love kids, but never had any of my own. I was just always busy with other things, my career mainly, travel, and just life in general. And if I'm totally honest, I don't think I had the courage to have kids of my own. I started exploring my sexual identity in my late 20s and didn't come out to family and friends until my mid 30s. My father's family are Muslim and quite traditional. In fact, I'm still not out to most of them. So, how could I have explained having a child of my own out of wedlock? I did consider a marriage of convenience, so marrying a gay Muslim man so that we could have kids. But that was never truly an option for me. What I really wanted was to have a normal, quote unquote, normal family life, a real family with a partner that I loved and who loved me. As time went by and I got older, and the option of getting pregnant with my own child became less and less likely, I accepted this fairly quickly and started thinking more about adopting. But it wasn't until my mother one day, completely out of the blue, said to me, "Why don't you adopt a baby?" that I started to seriously consider it. I was really surprised the first time she mentioned it and didn't pay her too much attention. But she kept bringing it up and saying, "You should adopt, you'd make a great mother." We talked about it a bit more, and I thought, yeah, why not? This was around the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And at about the same time that one of my best friends told me that she and her husband were in the approval process to adopt a child. So I decided to keep my own plans to myself and instead focused on supporting her through her journey and her experiences. Long story short, they went through a private adoption agency and were soon matched with a 6-year-old boy. But it wasn't smooth sailing for them, and there were a lot of issues with the child's foster carer imposing her opinions in meetings and really influencing decisions and interfering with how my friend and her husband were trying to form a relationship and a bond with the child. I couldn't understand how this was possible. Surely a foster carer was supposed to help the adoption process and not hinder it. And this is when I started thinking that I could be a foster carer. I thought I could really help a child as well as prospective adopters. Anyway, the placement eventually and very sadly broke down. It was absolutely devastating for my friend and her husband. I did my best to support them while they mourned this loss, and seeing them like that in such pain is what really sealed it for me. The week that their placement broke down was the week that I registered my interest with the fostering service in my borough. Leading up to my decision to become a foster carer and throughout the assessment and approval process, there were a lot of factors that I had to think about. Firstly, I was a single woman when I started the process and had to think about whether I would be able to foster as a single person. Was it allowed? And if so, I was going to need a support network. Would my family and friends be there for me, when I needed them? Financially, could I afford it? Could I afford to foster, especially as I would have to either give up work entirely or at least for a few months at the start of any placement? Or could I work part-time? Did I want to work part-time, or did I want to give up my work? I had to consider the impact on my social life. I didn't have any kids of my own and didn't have to worry about taking care of anyone else but myself. I could go out with friends on the spur of a moment without having to worry about a babysitter. I could go away for the weekend. Was I really ready for such a big change to my lifestyle? I had to think about the impact on my family. Would I still be able to be there for my elderly mother if she needed me? What if I got a child with complex needs, complex behavioral issues? Could I cope? How would I deal with giving up a child if and when they were adopted or went back to their biological family? And of course, could I foster as a gay woman? What barriers would I face? Would I be accepted by the child, by their family, or by other foster carers? These were all concerns and considerations for me along the route to becoming a foster carer. I didn't actually do any research into choices of agencies. Maybe I should have, I don't know, but I just contacted the fostering service of my local authority via their website. They have posters all around the borough and advertise information evenings, so information events in our local newspaper. So I knew of them, and when I was ready, I just reached out to them. I'm glad I did. I've had a very good experience with them so far. So, no regrets on that front. The day after I registered my interest to foster, I was contacted by a social worker, and we arranged to meet at my house and to talk more about my decision. The social worker was so lovely. We hit it off almost immediately and ended up chatting for over 2 hours. Toward the end of the conversation, I very nervously told her that I was gay. It felt like I was confessing. It sounds a bit silly now, but I was really worried that her attitude towards me would change or that I'd be told that I wasn't eligible to foster. Instead, she was very supportive and encouraging and assured me that my sexual orientation was not an issue at all. This was definitely a factor in sticking with the local authority fostering service instead of looking around for other agencies. She then suggested that I attend a 2-day training and assessment course called Skills to Foster, which would give me more insight into the realities of fostering. I agreed, and after attending the course, which, by the way, I really enjoyed, it solidified my decision to foster and helped me to better understand what I was signing up to. So, after attending the course, I was accepted as a potential foster carer and I started the approval process. The same social worker who came to my house the day after my initial expression of interest was appointed as my assessing social worker and took me through the process of preparing for the fostering panel. So that was also a bonus in my journey. My experiences of the fostering approval process were, for the most part, very positive. I found my assessing social worker to be genuinely empathetic and supportive. It can be a very emotional process, and it's quite invasive in that they do ask intensely personal questions about your background, about your upbringing, just about you as a person. My social worker was so patient and understanding, it made the process so much easier than it could have been. I was also surprised at the training resources available from the local authority and how well organized they were. And the training requirements are very clearly set out, and the courses are all made available through the local authority. Courses like child development, separation and loss, attachment theory, pediatric first aid, and even more specific topics like issues faced by unaccompanied asylum-seeking minors. So all of these things were made available to me. I was originally assessed and approved as a single foster carer, and when I later entered into a long-term relationship with my partner, I had to go through the approval process again, this time as part of a couple. So I've actually been through the process and been approved twice. The second time round wasn't too difficult because most of the work had already been done. It was more about assessing assessing my partner and also assessing us as a couple and how we would be as a couple fostering together. This posed its own challenges because, of course, it sometimes felt like our relationship was being scrutinized and judged. But we were able to handle this, and we got through it. We got through the process successfully. When I started on my journey to becoming a foster carer, I was adamant that I didn't want to foster teenagers. I didn't think I'd be up to the challenge of suddenly having to deal with a rebellious teenager who might be experimenting with drugs or alcohol or sex. As a single female, I was also worried about having a teenage boy in the house who could potentially overpower me physically. So I initially set the age range of children I was willing to foster at 0 to 10 years. So basically from newborns to 10 years old. Then I attended a skills to foster training and assessment course at the very start of my approval process and ended up completely changing my mind. After learning more about the challenges of fostering babies and toddlers, I amended the age range to all school-age children, so no babies at all. 5 years to 18 years for a girl and 5 to 12 years for boys. My partner and I are currently fostering a 13-year-old girl, and if all goes to plan, she will remain with us until she's 18 or longer if she stays in full-time education. If you're thinking about starting a family through adopting or fostering, my advice to you is go for it. Build your family. You won't regret it.